distinguished guests, representative of the state of Southern Africa, Diplomat Corps, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed.
Permitam-me, em primeiro lugar, expressar profundo agradecimento ao Freedom Park pelo honroso convite dirigido à Fundação Dr.
Say gratitude to Freedom Park for the honorable invitation extended to the Dr. Agostinho Neto Foundation to participate in this significant celebration.
Este espaço de elevado simbolismo histórico e moral é verdadeiro guardião da memória coletiva africana.
This space of profound historical and moral symbolism and of Africans' collective memory.
E é por isso, com particular sentido de responsabilidade, que aqui nos associamos a este momento, reiterar compromisso institucional de cooperação com o Freedom Park na preservação e transmissão da história de libertação dos povos da África Austral.
It is, therefore, with a strong sense of responsibility that we join to reiterate our firm institutional commitment to cooperate with Freedom Park in preserving, valuing, and transmitting the history of the liberation of the people of Southern Africa.
Reunimos-nos hoje para assinalar uma data que transcende fronteiras e reafirma a nossa identidade comum, o 23 de março, Dia da Libertação da África Austral.
We gather today to mark a date that transcends borders and reaffirms our shared identity. 23 March, Southern Africa Liberation Day.
Este dia evoca com particular solenidade a Batalha do CUITO COMMEMORATION, o maior confronto militar da guerra angolana, travado entre 15 de novembro de 1987 a 23 de março de 1988, no sudeste de Angola, na província do Cubango, ali onde confrontaram-se as Forças Armadas angolanas e de Cuba, por um lado, e por outro, a UNITA e o Exército Sul-Africano.
These days solely recall the Battle of CUITO, the largest military confrontation fought between 15 November 1987 and 23 March 1988 in southern Angola, in the province of Cubango. There, the armed force of Angola and Cuba confronted on one side UNITA and South Africa Army of the other.
Foi a batalha mais prolongada ocorrida no continente africano desde a Segunda Guerra Mundial e representou verdadeiro ponto de virada, conflito que se arrastava há longos anos.
It was the longest battle fought on the African continent since the Second World War, and it represented a true turning point in the conflict many years.
O seu impacto ultrapassou o campo militar, criou as condições para uma nova fase diplomática, conduzindo ao entendimento entre as partes envolvidas e a assinatura dos Acordos de Nova York.
Its impacts went beyond the military shape. It creates the condition for a new diplomatic phase, leading to understanding among the parties involved and to the signing of the New York Accords.
Estes acordos permitiram a implementação da Resolução 435/78 do Conselho de Segurança das Organizações das Nações Unidas, abrindo caminho para a independência da Namíbia e contribuindo significativamente para o fim do regime do apartheid na África do Sul.
These agreements enable the implementation of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 435 of 78, independence of Namibia, and contributing decisively to the end of the apartheid regime in South Africa.
Hoje, rendemos homenagem a todos aqueles que, com coragem e sacrifício, tornaram possível este avanço histórico. Combatentes, diplomatas, cidadãos anônimos, homens e mulheres que acreditaram que a liberdade não é uma concessão, mas é um direito inalienável dos povos.
Today we say grace to diplomats, to the people, the soldier, to say grace also, they give life for our freedom.
Ao evocarmos esta data, recordamos também o pensamento e a visão cujo compromisso com a dignidade humana e a autodeterminação, a solidariedade africana permanece profundamente atual.
Celebrating these days, we also recall the values of our father, Augusto, President of Angola, that share with us how to.
Temos o dever de a publicar, de a preservar, de a tornar acessível. E temos, sobretudo, a obrigação de a ensinar as nossas escolas, nas nossas universidades, nas academias, para que as novas gerações conheçam não apenas os fatos, mas o significado profundo das conquistas alcançadas.
And not only in writing our own history, we have the duty to share to the future generation in order to allow them to learn where we're coming from and where we're going forward.
Povo que não escreve a sua história arrisca-se a vê-la escrita por outros. E povo que não ensina a sua história arrisca-se a perder o sentido do seu próprio destino.
So the people that does not write its own history, some other people will write in its own. So it's really a risk.
Mas a memória por si só não basta. A mesma coragem que libertou a África Austral deve hoje manifestar-se na capacidade de enfrentar os desafios contemporâneos, desafios políticos que exigem instituições mais fortes, mais transparentes, próximas dos cidadãos.
So there is no matter of only writing. We have to share and allow other people to learn, and facing the new challenges, the challenges of development, the challenge of creating a good conditions of life to our people.
Desafios econômicos que impõem a necessidade de modelos de desenvolvimento inclusivos, sustentáveis e verdadeiramente soberanos.
The challenge now is to include everyone in social life, not let no one behind.
E desafios mais profundos, ligados à crescente vulnerabilização das soberanias das nossas nações, num contexto cada vez mais complexo e competitivo.
We have the challenge now to put our country's sovereignty in the first place in the international system where a lot of problems we face in our days.
A luta de libertação não terminou, ela transformou-se.
So the liberation fight didn't end.
Transformou-se.
And it's transformed.
Hoje, luta-se pela afirmação plena das nossas soberanias, pela dignidade econômica dos nossos povos, pela justiça social, pela construção de sociedades mais equitativas e resilientes.
Today, now we fight to reiterate our sovereignty in the international arena. We fight to give dignity to our people, give justice to our people.
Neste caminho, a unidade africana continua a ser não apenas um ideal, mas uma exigência estratégica. Tal como no passado, só através da solidariedade, da cooperação e da ação concertada poderemos responder eficazmente ao desafio do presente.
So, facing this challenge, we have to think what we did in the past. As we join forces to gain our liberty, our freedom, we also have to collaborate, to cooperate in order to face the new challenge of the societies.
Minhas senhoras e meus senhores, que este dia não seja apenas de evocação, de compromisso.
So let us make this day not just celebrating, but a very important day.
Compromisso com a verdade histórica, compromisso com a educação das futuras gerações, compromisso com a defesa da dignidade dos nossos povos e compromisso com a ação firme, consciente e determinada.
We have to reaffirm our commitment to education, to defense, to justice, to all of our people.
Honremos o passado, não apenas recordando, mas aprendendo com ele. Assumamos o presente com coragem e com responsabilidade.
We have to honor the past, but not just honor, but also learning from the past, and then take lesson from the past to put it in the present.
E construamos o futuro com a mesma determinação que guiaram aqueles que lutaram pela nossa liberdade.
And build a future regarding the learning from the one who died for our freedom.
Muito obrigada. Essa é a mensagem da Presidente do Conselho de Administração da Fundação Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto.
Thank you so much. This is the message from the President of Agostinho Neto Foundation.
Obrigado. Thank you very much, Madam Compass of the NATO Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are reminded here that this is not a celebration, but a very important moment of reflection so that we co-create a future that we want to leave behind, a future of our children. So let's remind each other here and remind even those that we have left at home that this is an important moment of documenting, digitizing this important history for posterity, for the benefit of the future generation. We're moving along, ladies and gentlemen, along this important program. We will be taking the next message of support from our liberation movement, the African National Congress. I always say it's still a liberation movement because we can't forget about the past. Unfortunately, we can't forget about the past. We were liberated because of a concerted effort of all of you here. But most importantly, we know that the African National Congress also played a very pivotal role, especially in the Battle of CUITO COMMEMORATION. Amongst our midst, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite to the podium our first Deputy Secretary General, Mayor Nomvula Makonyane. Please give her a round of applause.
Amandla, Program Director, at the time of the CUITO CUANAVALE battle, Comrade Rodney, some of us were under the state of emergency. Young children, pregnant mothers like myself, incarcerated by the apartheid system, and in isolation will stand on the windows of detention and will sing a song that says, Cuban people, loving nation, here we are far from home. We shall need you, we shall love you for the things you have done for us. Cuban people, loving nation, here we are far from home. We shall need you, we shall love you for the things you have done for us. Amandla. Program directors, Dr. Thabo Manetsi, Chief Executive Officer, National Heritage Council, Dr. Jane Pamadi, the Chief Executive Officer of the Freedom Park, Mr. Tamika Plaki, representing the Freedom Park Council, Senior Colonel Jose Manuel Ortega Martinez of the Cuban Revolutionary Force, General Mapanya, the Chief of the South African National Defense Force, Mayor Irene of the Agostino Neto Foundation, His Excellency Mr. Nelson Canero de Souza, Minister Councillor of the Angolan Embassy, His Excellency Mr. Fakri Rodriguez Pinella, the Ambassador of the Republic of Cuba, Her Excellency Ms. Nangula Frida Itete, the High Commissioner of Namibia, the Roman Ambarov, Ambassador of Russia, Deputy Minister Peace Mabe, Mr. Tauma Semula, Chairperson of the National Heritage Council, veterans of our liberation struggle, distinguished guests, traditional leaders, ladies and gentlemen, I stand here on behalf of the African National Congress, led by President Cyril Ramaphosa, and bring warm revolutionary greetings to the Executive Committee and the entire membership of the ANC. We gather here today in the presence of a history too profound to be handled casually. We gather before a chapter that did not merely record a battle but altered the political destiny of Southern Africa. Was not simply a military confrontation. It was a declaration. It was the moment when the arrogance of apartheid power collided with the organized courage of the oppressed. It was the moment when history stopped speaking in whispers and began to answer in the thunder of liberation. We stand here because Angolan blood was shed here, Cuban blood was shed there, Namibian blood was shed there, South African blood was shed there. The wider bloodline of Southern African liberation runs through that. When a people forget the ground on which their freedom was defended, they begin to forget themselves. Let us be clear. CUITO CUANAVALE mattered because it changed the balance of forces, not emotionally alone, materially, politically, strategically. The road to Quito ran through the Lomba, through Mavinga, through Jamba, and through a wider architecture of destabilization designed to keep Angola weak, Namibia occupied, and South Africa trapped under apartheid rule. The enemy of believed that military superiority will guarantee political control, that superior weapons will preserve regional domination, and that fear will remain the organizing principle of Southern Africa. At CUITO CUANAVALE, they encountered another reality. They encountered organized people. They encountered disciplined liberation, internationalist solidarity. They encountered a region that had decided it would not kneel forever. That is why Comrade President Oliver Reginald Tambo understood CUITO CUANAVALE as he did. That is why President Mandela called it a turning point in the struggle to free Southern Africa and our own country from apartheid. That is why Comrade President located it among decisive chapters of Africa's modern history. They understood that this was not merely about troop movement or battlefield positioning. It was about what became politically irreversible afterwards. CUITO CUANAVALE announced that Pretoria could no longer stride across the region with the same impunity. It announced that Namibia's independence could no longer be indefinitely delayed. South Africa's liberation struggle had entered a new strategic hour. It announced that the old order had begun to lose its power to define the new terms. For the NC, Angola is not a foreign chapter in someone else's story. Angola is part of the bloodstream of our liberation movement, space to breathe, regroup, train, and prepare at a time when apartheid wanted to suffocate every possibility of resistance. Under the leadership of President Agostinho Neto and the MPLA, Angola did not. Angola defended the regional possibility of freedom itself. And therefore, when we salute Angola, we must salute with historical seriousness. We salute President Agostinho Neto, that poet of the revolution, that architect of national dignity, the son of Africa who understood that the freedom of Angola was inseparable from the freedom of our region. We salute FAPLA, the People's Armed Forces for the Liberation of Angola, whose courage on the battlefield helped alter the destiny of Southern Africa. And because names matter, because history must never become faceless, let us honor Angola through President Agostinho Neto, Hoji Yahenda, Diolinda Rodriguez, and the known and unknown Angolan revolutionaries who accepted death so that nations might live and South Africa be free. Their blood did not disappear into the dust of war. Their blood entered the bloodstream of freedom. Did not become free alone. We did not walk to freedom on a road built only by our own feet. Angolan revolutionaries helped carry us. Angolan mothers buried sons for a freedom that would not stop at Angola's borders. Angolan villages endured the cruelty of aggression because the enemies of liberation knew that to weaken Angola was to wound the future of the whole region. That is why Angola deserves not only remembrance, but reverence. The same has to be said about Namibia. Namibia's freedom was not handed over by a suddenly softened oppressor. It was won. It was won through endurance, sacrifice, organization, and revolutionary discipline. President Sam Nujoma stands amongst the giants of African liberation because he understood that the struggle of Namibia could never be separated from the struggles of Angola, South Africa, and the wider region. He did not merely lead a nation to independence. He helped enlarge the moral horizon of Southern Africa. We must therefore salute SWAPO and its wing plan, the People's Liberation Army of Namibia. Turned exile into organization, hardship into discipline, and hope into armed determination. It helped ensure that Namibia's demand for independence could not be buried beneath occupation. And because heroes and heroines must be called into the air of memory, let us honor Namibia through President Sam Nujoma, Tobias Hainyeko, Peter Nanyemba, Dimo Hamambo, and the revolutionaries of SWAPO and PLAN who marched, who fought, and endured until freedom became irreversible. Their victory enlarged the dignity of the whole region. Their courage strengthened all of us. So to Namibia we say, this with sincerity and affection, your freedom lives inside our freedom. Your revolutionaries did not struggle in isolation. They struggled for a Southern Africa in which no people will remain forever under the boot of occupation. And of course, there is Cuba. There are some debts in history that cannot be measured in diplomatic phrases. Cuba's contribution to the liberation of Southern Africa is one of them. Cuba didn't come to Africa to conquer. Cuba didn't come to Africa to extract in search of wealth. Cuba came because it understood internationalism not as a decoration, but as duty. President Fidel Castro understood that the cry of Angola was also a summons to the conscience of revolutionary humanity. That is why Cuba sent not only words, but it sent people. Not only sympathy, but it sent sacrifice. Not only statements, Cuba sent revolutionaries. What a magnificent thing that was in the moral history of our world. Island under blockade, and that requires you to cross oceans to help alter the destiny of a continent. That Cuban revolutionaries will give their lives not for territory, not for tribute, not for minerals, but for dignity. There is beauty in that. There is greatness in that. There is an ethical splendor in that which the world must never be allowed to forget. And because names matter, let us salute President Fidel Castro, Ernesto Che Guevara, Celia Sanchez, Velma Espin, Melba Hernandez, and the Cuban revolutionaries of Operation Carlota, who translated principle into sacrifice. Let us salute too the 2,070 Cuban internationalists whose names are inscribed here at Freedom Park. Those names they are there to discipline memory. They are there to remind us that solidarity is not solidarity is sacrifice. We also salute the Venceremos Brigade, one of the enduring symbols of organized international solidarity with the Cuban Revolution. Cuba gave the oppressor something he could neither understand nor easily defeat: people willing to die for the freedom of others. That is why Cuba occupies a sacred place in the political memory of the African National Congress and of many other liberation movements in the continent. And because history is not dead, let us also say this with moral clarity: Cuba needs solidarity now. Cuba needs solidarity now, not through speeches, not through messages. Cuba needs solidarity in action. Cuba needs revolutionaries. Cuba needs determination to defy the dominance of one against the others. Women who will stand for humanity appreciate that sacrifice is sacrifice for the good and sacrifice for humanity. We know that Soviet in history to suit the fashions of the present. We remember the anti-fascist inheritance of the Soviet people. We remember the political, material, and strategic solidarity that helped strengthen liberation movements across the world. The Soviet and Russian heroes and heroines whose names are honored here at Freedom Park and whose sacrifices form part of the wider story of Southern Africa's freedom. Our friends as the ANC, we know our allies. We know the architect of solidarity that helped bend the future towards freedom. And because we know it, we are committed to lose that is immediate as compared to lose that has been with us over time. As we gather here today, we have to also make a commitment, Comrade Ronnie, that our youth must never be fooled into believing that the oppressor suddenly became kind and offered us freedom. No. Freedom was not donated. Liberation was never gifted. We defeated them at CUITO CUANAVALE. Let that truth stand in full dignity. We defeated them through struggle, through sacrifice, through mass mobilization, through underground work, through Umkhonto weSizwe, the military wing of the African National Congress, through international solidarity, and through courage of ordinary people in many countries. Angola helped defeat them. Cuba helped defeat them. Namibia helped defeat them. The ANC and the democratic masses of South Africa helped defeat them. Let us together defeat them against Cuba. That truth matters because a people that does not understand how it became free can easily be manipulated in dishonoring our own inheritance. Our youth must know that liberation has authors, and those authors were revolutionaries. And yet the greatness of our movement lies in this, that when victory came within reach, we chose reconciliation. We chose reconciliation not because we were naive, not because we were weak, and not because we had forgotten. We chose reconciliation because ours was a movement of moral depth. We understood that beyond liberation, now liberating ourselves, we also had to liberate the oppressor from themselves, from the poison of racism, from the prison of domination, from the spiritual ills of believing that another human being exists to be ruled and diminished, because we understood that a minority can never rule over a majority forever. But what we need to caution now when we're going through these turmoils here at home and globally, we need to advise those that believe that our time has come and gone. Not misunderstand reconciliation. It does not mean silence in the face of pressure. It does not mean historical amnesia. It does not mean a free people must lower their head before new forms of cohesion. We know too much about the price of blood to romanticize suffering. History. We know that we must never again be in negotiations to extend a hand of friendship to the people of Cuba. At a moment such as this, history demands names. It demands, so let us bow our heads before President Agostinho Neto, Hoji Yahenda of Angola. Let us bow our heads before President Sam Nujoma, Tobias Hainyeko, Peter Nayemba, and Dimbo Hanmambo of Namibia and Plan. Let us bow our heads before President Che Guevara, Celia Sanchez, Vilma Espin, Melba Hernandez, and the 2,070 Cuban internationalists whose names are inscribed here at the Freedom Park. Let us bow our heads before the Soviet Russian heroes and heroines honored in the same sacred place. Let us bow our heads before President O.R. Tambo, President Nelson Mandela, Comrade Chris Hani, Comrade Joe Modise, Mamuini Matigizela Mandela, Dorothy Nyembe, and Adelaide Tambo, and the known and unknown cadres of Umkhonto weSizwe, who we are living in a moment in which old imperial habits have learned new language. Power now hides behind the vocabulary of order, of national interest, of stability, of concern, and democratic guardianship, while pursuing same old objectives of control, of extraction, of intimidation, and regime manipulation. The and diplomacy are increasingly being used not merely to communicate power, but to discipline those who refuse to bow before it. That is why a serious reading of the present must move beyond surface events and see the pattern. From the continued suffocation of Cuba to the devastation of Gaza and proxies. And that is why CUITO CUANAVALE still speaks with such force. It does remind us that no domination is permanent. That is why we should together as South Africans speak with moral clarity in a world that increasingly rewards confusion. Let Angola hear us as South Africans. Let Namibia hear us, and let Namibia remember. Let Cuba hear us, and let Cuba see us. The insistence on your dignity and endurance. Let Russia hear us, and let Russia be seen. That is why we stand where history has always instructed us, to stand on the side of dignity and humanity, on the side of sovereignty, on the side of liberation. Solidarity must continue. And victory, as always, belongs not to the arrogant, not to the aggressor, not to the bully, but to the steadfast. We come from the movement shaped by the courage of Pani Molokwane, of Ruth Mompati, of Marion Spark, of Geraldine Fraser Muleketi, and by countless revolutionaries who carried the struggle on their backs. They did not sacrifice so that free people could one day tremble before pressure. They did not endure so that a sovereign nation could lower its head before arrogance. This land was not won by fear. It was won by sacrifice of the Cubans, of the Angolans, of the Namibians, of the people of the world. And it will not be governed by intimidation. Allow ourselves to be bullied as we have resisted against a domination of a minority. May we all refuse to be bullied, and may we rise to the occasion of again uniting in action, in solidarity. Amandla.
Viva! Continua! Continua! Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for the resounding words indeed. Longer any other rhetoric, any other speech. Really, this is history in the making. We are actually cooking. You know, young people use that phrase, we are cooking now. And I feel indeed that we are in that pot. We are cooking this pot, ma'am, and thank you very much for reminding us about that. Thank you. We're moving along, ladies and gentlemen, along the program. We're going to be taking the next message of support from His Excellency, Mr. Nelson Camero de Sos, Minister Chancellor of the Angolan Embassy. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Program Director. Excellency Pace Mabe, Deputy Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Honorable Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Nomvula Mokonyane, Excellencies, Ambassadors to the Republic of South Africa, we'll have it. Traditional leaders present here, General Rudzani Mafwania, Chief of African National Defense Forces, worthy combatants of the Battle of CUITO CUANAVALE, ladies and gentlemen, good day of the liberation of Southern Africa. Long live freedom, long live. Long live justice, long live. It is a great honor to me standing here before you today at this sanctuary of our history to speak on behalf of His Excellency João Batista Quiosa, Ambassador of the Republic of Angola to the Republic of South Africa, reflecting on the Battle of CUITO, a battle that changed the course of the history of our countries and our peoples. Hosting this event has a very significant meaning because it demonstrates, on the one hand, that history cannot be erased, and on the other hand, the need to transmit to the new generations our trajectory, where we came from, happened along the way. It is in this sense that March 23, 1988 should continue to be a date of reflection, not only for the peoples of Angola, South Africa, and Namibia, but for the peoples of Southern Africa in general. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we reflect on the price of freedom in an international context characterized by conflicts, economic crisis, migration crisis, the consequences of climate change, the high cost of living in the world. In short, a set of challenges that should remind us that peace is the and well-being. Therefore, we should ask ourselves how much our freedom cost. What was paid so that today we can enjoy peace and freedom? The answers will allow us to answer today, honoring those who paid the ultimate price for our freedom. More than 100,000 people, including soldiers, civilians, gave their lives for our freedom. And it was precisely in Angolan soil where Angolans, South Africans, Namibians, Cubans, and all freedom fighters, as well as the local population, suffered during the clashes of the Battle of CUITO-CUANAVALE. Thanks to the strength of our soldiers and for self-determination, today we celebrate the day of the liberation of Southern Africa from across the region. Angola fought in its own soil one of the worst conflicts since World War II and endured the losses of its own sons in the pursuit of equality, dignity, self-determination of people, and justice. The government of the Republic of Angola is proud of its contribution to achieving the dream of freedom in Southern Africa. And despite the economic and social consequences, we would do it again. We would welcome our brothers and sisters from across the region and fight alongside with them for the liberation of the Battle of CUITO-CUANAVALE was a very significant historical event that demonstrated the importance of solidarity based on the African principle, which was always present in Angola since achieving its independence in November 11, 1975, guided by its first president, Dr. Antonio Agostinho Neto, who stated, in Namibia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa, our struggle continues. Since its independence, the Angolan government has been at the forefront of the struggle for peace and freedom of the people of South Africa, Namibia, and for the entire African continent. Therefore, we have suffered together the consequences of this struggle, which in the end was worthwhile because we all achieved peace and freedom. This valuable gain does not represent a victory against any particular group of people. Rather, it represents a victory against oppression, inequality, injustice. Therefore, it is a victory of everyone, for everyone, because today we understand that we can live together despite our differences. Today, we understand that our diversity can make us stronger. Today, we seek to explore our qualities for the common good of all people. Today, our differences no longer weaken us, but rather strengthen us. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, living in peace and enjoying freedom, we are rebuilding our countries as nations for the well-being of all, no exceptions. As I conclude my remarks, I would like to take this opportunity to encourage our countries to increase cultural, economic, and commercial cooperation, because if we have stood together in difficult times, nothing and no one can separate us in these times of peace. We thank the government of the Republic of South Africa, in particular the Ministry of Sport, Arts and Culture, and the Freedom Park Management for hosting this event every year, a ceremony that represents a well-deserved tribute to all the combatants who fought for the freedom and independence of Southern Africa. Long live freedom, long live! Long live justice, long live! Thank you very much.
Obrigado. I've landed. Obrigado. We're still in solidarity. Are we still in solidarity? Can I get an amen? Thank you. Thank you. We're in solidarity. The future is still far. You know, now we are waging another struggle. You heard there's bigger problems, there's bigger challenges, you know, on the shores. And really, really, all these challenges are impacting all of us. But let's be reminded that we're building really from the foundation that has been left behind. Thank you for that. Thank you for the resounding words, His Excellency. We're moving along now to another message of support from the Republic of Cuba. You heard from the resounding words of our veteran. Now we will be taking a very important message from His Excellency, Mr. Fakir Rodriguez Pinal, of the Ambassador of Cuba. Thank you very much, sir. Welcome.
Viva Cuba, viva!
Viva!
Good morning to all. Allow me to run on the protocol that preceded me, but allow me to say that it is a privilege for us to be here today with all of you, leadership and Cubans, and all who are here today. It is a profound honor to be here in this, once again, remember and commemorate the victory of the Battle of CUITO, CUANAVALE, to pay deserved tribute to those who, with their blood and sacrifice, forced change the destiny for Southern Africa in its entirety. For Cuba, it is profoundly moving to know that among those names are more than 2,000 combatants who gave their lives as internationalists in African soil, in this special place, Freedom Park. Each one of those names is an indestructible bridge between our two nations, and a reminder that the victory of CUITO CUANAVALE was a shared triumph of courage and solidarity. When the South African liberation movement faced the brutal power of apartheid, Cuba did not hesitate to stand by the revolutionary forces of this country. Fidel made it clear that Cuba did not go to Africa to seek economic profit or material advantage, but only to be here out of a basic duty of solidarity with the oppressed. The Cubans who came to fight and served in this continent understood that the region's cause was their own. The unity and friendship between South Africa and Cuba is a shining symbol of Mandela and Fidel Castro's legacy. Their friendship is a reminder of the shared sacrifices for our liberation and our common struggles. This year, we commemorate the centenary of relationship takes on an even deeper meaning. To remember Fidel in South Africa is to remember a revolutionary who made the struggle against apartheid one of his own causes. Thank you. Mandela, for his part, saw in Fidel a brother in arms, a loyal ally who stood with South Africa when solidarity was a dangerous but necessary choice. We are fully aware that the world is going through turbulent times. Imperialism renews its methods, combining economic pressure with hate campaigns, divide peoples, and hitting particularly hard those countries that defend their sovereignty and openly identify as progressive or revolutionary. Cuba suffers directly from these hostile policies, which seek to wear down, through hardship and exhaustion, a nation determined not to renounce to its social project. Yet the Cuban people reaffirm their international vocation. Even as we face serious economic difficulties and a tightened blockade, Cuba remains determined through highly skilled professionals wherever they are needed, to train young people from sister nations and to defend anywhere the right of the people to build their own path without external impositions. Let Park be both a tribute and a pledge. A tribute to the martyrs who made the end of apartheid possible, and to all those who fought and paid the ultimate price for the independence we enjoy today. A tribute to South Africa's and Cuba's stalwarts who understood that freedom comes with a great sacrifice and that they're negotiable. And let it be a pledge by South Africa and working together, building a better world, strengthening a relationship based on mutual respect, solidarity, and mutual support. Viva the heroes of veterans and CUITO. Eternal glory to all those who gave their lives in the struggles against apartheid. Long live the eternal friendship between Cuba and South Africa. Long live the legacy of Nelson Mandela and Fidel Castro. A lucha. Hasta la victoria, siempre. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, His Excellency. Thank you indeed. We are reminded here, ladies and gentlemen, that Cuba needs us the most now. Let's not forget. I'll just leave it at that. Let's not forget. Thank you very much, sir, for the profound message. Indeed, we really, really are truly blessed to have you amongst our midst, sacrifices that Cuba made for the liberation of our people in Southern Africa. Thank you very much, sir. As we move along, ladies and gentlemen, let me also remind us here that indeed you can and you are at liberty. Remember, we are liberated. You are at liberty to really trend now. Use your phones. Let's trend. You know, we remember we're making history. Post as much as you can. Be a disruptor now. I was disrupting there. Be a disruptor now. Send out those posts. The social media must be abuzz now because we are here with legendary, we are here with giants. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to, let's welcome now to the podium our next speaker, Her Excellency Ms. Nangola Freda of Namibia. Very important nation that was quite instrumental in our liberation as well. We are still in solidarity. Viva, we are in solidarity. Thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. Do we have her? She's not here. All right. No, thank you very much. She's with us in spirit. She's with us in solidarity. I'm sure where she is, she's also trending. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have now we move on to our next, His Excellency, Mr. Romano Ambravo, the Republic of Russia. Thank you very much, the ambassador. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Somehow we should, fix it. Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister Peace Mabe, comrade Nambula, comrades and friends. On the soil of Angola, people from different, united by a common purpose, dignity and justice. This was more than just a military confrontation. It was a meeting point of histories and hopes. CUITO became a symbol of resistance against oppression. It demonstrated that even in the face of overwhelming force, the determination of people fighting for their rights cannot be defeated. It was here that the tide began to turn, not only in Angola, but across the region. The role played by the Soviet Union in supporting Angola during this difficult period remains an important part of this history. Through various means of assistance and political support,